welcome to Morning Coffee. It's your girl Tammy coming back at you with an encouraging word. We're just gonna hop right back in. We're gonna keep on where we left off on Friday. We are in the book of Ruth. On Friday, we got until almost through the whole chapter of chapter 1. We stopped around verse 18. So we're gonna start at chapter 1, verse 18, and go into a little bit of chapter 2 and just kind of delve in and pick out some points here. So I'm just going to start at Ruth chapter 1 verse 18, or actually verse 19. So the two women went on until they came to Bethlehem. When they arrived in Bethlehem, the whole town was stirred because of them, and the woman exclaimed, "Can this be Naomi?" "Don't call me Naomi," she told them. "Call me Mara, because the Almighty has made my life very bitter. I went away full, but the Lord has brought me back empty. Why call me Naomi? The Lord has afflicted me. The Almighty has brought misfortune upon me." So Naomi returned from Moab, accompanied by Ruth the Moabite, her daughter-in-law, arriving in Bethlehem as the barley harvest was beginning. So I'm just going to stop right here. And I know that I mentioned this on Friday as well. Naomi here, she's coming back. She had decided, okay, I'm coming back to the land. I'm coming back to God. She has Ruth coming along with her, who's her daughter-in-law. She arrives back in Bethlehem, and clearly you can see here that she was well known before she left, because the people of the town realized that when she came back, and they started talking like, "Oh, is this Naomi? What? Naomi's coming back after she's been gone." And she had been gone for quite a while, about 10 years plus, that she had been gone, and now she's back, and they still notice her, and they're like, "What is this Naomi? Finally coming back home." And then she tells them, "Don't call me Naomi, call me Mara," because she's bitter at this point. She's bitter against God. She said, "I went away full, but I came back empty." And again, just like I mentioned on Friday, it wasn't that the Lord was giving her misfortune, and it wasn't that the Lord was doing these awful things to her. It was the simple fact that Elimelech decided to move his family from the place where God had them, from Bethlehem, the place of God, people of like faith. They moved away from that, lost their covering, and went to a pagan nation of Moab. And there, her sons married Moabite women. So they opened themselves up to the consequences of that decision to move away from the land that they knew. And so now Naomi is feeling a little bitter. She's probably sounding like she's a little angry at God, feeling anxious, not really knowing what her future has in store. But one right decision she made was to go back. So even though she's angry, even though she's upset at these circumstances and her loss, she did decide to go back. And I just want to relate that to maybe a situation that maybe someone out there is going through. Like maybe you made some choices, and from those choices you have consequences that aren't the best, and maybe you're angry with God, or you're anxious, or you have some bitterness there that you're like, I'm not happy because God has caused me misfortune. But you've decided, hey, I'm going to go back. Even though I'm feeling this bitterness, I'm going to go back to what I know. I'm going to go back to my first love. And God will definitely restore. He will redeem you. He's never gone anywhere. Once you turn around, he's right there. He's right there once we turn around and make that decision to come back to him. So that's the first point I want to make. The second point I want to make, and I'm going to read a little bit further. I'm going to start in chapter 2, verse 1. It says, "Now Naomi had a relative on her husband's side, a man of standing from the clan of Elimelech, whose name was Boaz. And Ruth the Moabite said to Naomi, 'Let me go to the fields and pick up the leftover grain behind anyone in whose eyes I find favor.' Naomi said to her, 'Go ahead, my daughter.' So she went out, entered a field, and began to glean behind the harvesters. As it turned out, she was working in a field belonging to Boaz, who was from the clan of Elimelech." So here you have Boaz, who owns a field. He's a man of good standing. And just to give you a little backdrop here, in that time and in that culture, if you had a male who died, the next of kin male in that family it was their right or their duty or their responsibility to redeem, so to speak, that family, redeem their land, so that the man's name can continue to go on through generations. They can produce more sons, and that name can just continue on. So Boaz, he's from Elimelech's family, so he has that option to bring redemption. But there's also someone else that's even closer, and we haven't got to that part yet, but there's another relative as well that is closer. But just to lay the context here, that is the culture of the time. If there's the next in line, the next male would actually take on that family, take on any land, anything like that, so that they continue in the name. Another thing we want to look at too when we're talking about culture is in this time, they arrived at the barley harvest. Now, Ruth was a Moabite woman, and she would not have been welcome to glean or even to harvest in these fields. So she couldn't just walk up and start harvesting like everybody else. She had to get the scraps, she had to get the leftovers, she had to go behind after it was already harvested and just pick up whatever, glean from whatever was left. And so she just so happens to enter and go into the field belonging to Boaz, not knowing, who he was or whose field it was. She just picked the field. And that's not a coincidence. God aligned up for her to be redeemed. He lined it all up so that the field that she landed in was Boaz's field, because God knew what was going to happen in chapter 3 and chapter 4. So he had already lined it up and paved the way. And I just want to let you know that can relate to you as well. When you turn back to God, now remember, Ruth she didn't even know God. She decided to turn away from the pagan God that she grew up in and all that she knew, and decided to follow Ruth's God. And once she did that, that salvation opened up for God to start to direct her life toward her destiny. And she had that favor, she had that covering now. So once she gets to Bethlehem, she's like, I'm here with my mother-in-law. I got to work. I got to feed us. We don't have anything to eat. I'm just going to go and I'm going to glean. But all the while, God was leading her steps and leading her, and she ended up in Boaz's field. So that could be the same for you today. If you are coming to Christ, maybe for the first time, or just coming back to him, maybe like Naomi was, God will definitely redeem and restore, and he will begin to lead and guide and just direct you so that you can get to the place that he has you to be, that place of favor, that place of abundance, that place of safety and security. So that's my encouragement for you today. We're going to stop right there for today, and then we're going to keep going on Wednesday. We'll pick back up and we'll finish going through chapter 2. But I just wanted to point those two things out. That one, even in spite of Naomi's bitterness, she still, of course, comes back to God. 2, when Ruth decides to give her life to God, he opens up the door. And here we see that he is starting to align things and set things up for Ruth. And little does she know, she's just gleaning in the field trying to take care of her mother-in-law. But little does she know that this field belongs to the Redeemer, the one that's going to redeem her and provide for her, and even put her in the line of Jesus. So, and she has no idea, but she's about to find out when we continue to read in these next few chapters. So stay with me. We're just going to keep pillaging through the book of Ruth. I hope you are being blessed. Leave any comments below or any questions that you might have, and I will try to I will read through those and try to answer any questions on Wednesdays video. So hope you enjoyed. Thanks for watching, and I will see you soon.